Hawkeye series finale. So yeah, we're here at Hawkeye episode 6, finally at the season finale, and it's pretty much just bringing an end to a storyline that has felt elongated, and it's really just Clint and Kate tying up all these loose ends and bringing the show to its conclusion. Now, of course, Kingpin was teased at the end of the last episode, and it is the Kingpin from the Daredevil TV show, and he was sort of in from the start here, and he didn't get the biggest role, but he got a fair amount of screen time here, enough to probably satisfy viewers who have been speculating and hoping that Kingpin would be in it. I never saw the Daredevil show, but he was cool in here. From what I saw of his character, he's a cool character, and it's probably someone I would like to see more of. But either way, it was short-lived, and it feels like they probably could have brought him in the show sooner, but maybe they're just bringing him in now so that they can show him again in a movie. Obviously, we've been kind of bouncing back and forth between who's the culprit. Is it Jack? Is it someone else? It turns out that it is Kate's mother. There was always something a little bit shady about her. She's the culprit and Jack isn't, so it's not exactly the biggest shock. It was sort of a predictable thing where they're trying to paint Jack as someone who really does look like a villain, which makes it kind of easy for us to guess that he's probably not. So it was her mother in the end, and not exactly the biggest surprise. Yelena, she was still trying to kill Clint here. Ultimately, I just found her character very annoying in this episode once again. She just, she's cracking jokes a lot when she's got like a serious mission to do. I know that is part of her personality, but she's trying to kill someone who she thinks is responsible for the death of her sister, and she's cracking jokes beforehand, and then when she finally gets to him, she won't listen to a word he says because she's just so hell-bent on revenge. And I just wasn't exactly convinced. It felt very cliche, and honestly I just found her inclusion unnecessary. I'm not really sure what the point was, to be honest. She was in here to kill Clint and then find out that it wasn't Clint's fault, and she forgives him even though he did nothing wrong in the first place. And now they're all pally, and Clint was fine with her trying to kill him, he understood. And it's just, I don't know why she was here, and she had quite a big role in this last episode, and I wish she hadn't, but there you go. Now, of course, we had Echo, who's been in since the second episode, end of the first episode, when she was first teased, who we thought was kind of be the main villain, but turns out, I don't know, there's some love interest there going on with Kingpin, or at least he loves her. She doesn't seem to love him, and once again, Echo's conclusion here just it just wasn't fulfilling. I mean, she's been a really badly executed character throughout the show. She's just not had much going on with her. She hasn't felt that interesting, and just once again, it's another character in this show that it could have been done better. Could have been done better, but it just wasn't. She was very forgettable, and probably the most memorable thing she's done in the show is what she does at the end, and that's kill Kingpin. But we all know he's not really dead because he's Kingpin. He's built like a brick shithouse, so a bullet isn't going to do anything to he survived grenades and arrows to the chest in this episode, so I don't think a bullet is going to do much. But either way, she did that, so hopefully that's the end of her, because she's very forgettable, and I'm not that bothered to see her again. And with Kate and Clint, who are the stars of the show, it just seems like Clint is going to pass over the mantle to Kate. It seems like he was, at the end when they were discussing what her name could be, he was just going to be like, oh, how about Hawkeye? You can be called that, because he doesn't want to be Hawkeye anymore. It seems pretty clear that he wants to be a family man, but in all honesty, I don't think this show did a very good job of setting up Kate as a new likable character that we want to take the mantle of Hawkeye. For me, she had some decent moments, but she didn't do anything outstanding. She didn't become super likable to me, not like characters have in other shows, in these other Marvel shows. Here she was just not that interesting, and I think that's where the shows have suffered. We're enjoying the characters we already know, but when they're bringing in new ones, they are very hard to find likable after one season. Agatha Harkness in WandaVision was not very likable. Loki probably had the only one that I did actually like, and that was the person playing female Loki. But even then, you're not too sure about her, and it's only really at the end you sort of come to like her a bit. But that was the best show of the lot anyway. So even then it took time, and she's still not everyone's cup of tea. Like, not everyone likes her. And here again for me, Kate was an example of that. Like, she had some moments, but I wouldn't say I'm excited to see her in a movie, as the new Hawkeye. She just ultimately wasn't good enough. Yeah, I don't think they did a very good job of introducing a character and making her seem like the good replacement. Honestly, overall, I think this show told a not so interesting story, and they played that not so interesting story out far too long. Like, this did not need to be told over like 5 hours of screen time. It just wasn't interesting enough. For me, there were too many cameos here that were just unnecessary and uninteresting. They're trying to bring in so many, characters from comics or characters we've already seen in movies, and, they just didn't feel like they were executed very well. And then returning characters were kind of meh, apart from Clint. Clint was the only one where I was like, he's actually putting in good work here. He's doing a good job here. Jeremy Renner as Clint, as he always has done. And with him, he was the only one I really wanted to see. And new characters just weren't interesting enough. So it is a shame. I think they had too many characters here, hence why they couldn't really give Clint enough screen time. Because they're trying to bring in so many other people to this story, and it just, I would have rather just seen more Clint. There was definitely nowhere near enough of him for me in this show, and I think the show should have been something taking a more closer and personal look at him, and showed more of what's really going through his head, shown more of what he's going through, and how he's feeling after the events of Endgame. Because yes, they do explore that a bit, but it's so scattered between all these other characters that they're trying to show. I still do think this show should have been set between Infinity War and Endgame, and shown him as Ronin, shown him as a man grieving his family, like a wife and 3 kids that he's lost. That's what the show should have been. Like, because you could show such a dark and, brutal side to Clint there. We've only ever got, little glimpses of that. And yes, they showed like the occasional flashback for probably a combined screen time of like a minute and a half. It's just, I wanted to see more. I really wanted to see that part of Clint, because I think that's what fascinated me the most about his character throughout these stories. Like, yeah, he's great as Hawkeye, but I'd love to know what was going on with him at that time, and just see more of it. And even if they didn't want to do that, they could have had the show set when it is now, but maybe they could have done like a 50-50 split where they're cutting back between him now as Hawkeye and him before as Ronin. Just really have that nice 50-50 split. Do like a cool balance, cutting back and forth and showing different elements to him as he tries to get over the things that he's done before. But here we are. They went for a whole show set off the Endgame with little mentions of Ronin, and I don't think it was the one. I just felt this show didn't offer much, and I don't think it set up much either. Like, yeah, I guess it's shown that, Kate's going to be the new Hawkeye and that Kingpin is part of the MCU, but, I think they didn't need to tell such a long, story in order to bring us those things, or they could have done it a completely different way. Just, This felt like a clustered mess, trying to bring lots of old and new characters together, and it just didn't come together well. It didn't come together well. It had its decent moments, and it had the moments where you think maybe this could go somewhere because they had such a good cast here. But it just didn't lead anywhere. It didn't lead to anything. It didn't lead to anything exciting. And honestly, I was pretty bored for a majority of the time watching this show. It rarely had my attention fully grasped, which is a shame. I know it sounds harsh, but honestly, this show did nothing for me. I know a lot of other people are actually enjoying it, but for me, I really didn't enjoy this show. Not saying it was bad, but it certainly wasn't good. It was just very meh, and certainly one I'd never rewatch, certainly one I will probably forget. And it's a shame, because Jeremy Renner has always been great as Hawkeye, and I think he deserved something better here, and I think they could have told a much better story, because when you're choosing a character like Hawkeye, no offense to him, but you do need to at least have a very good story planned out, because it's Hawkeye. He's not one of these heroes with amazing powers and whatnot, so you need to make sure the story's on point, because with him you can't just wow us with extraterrestrial like locations and fights with really crazy enemies. You need to tell a good story. That needs to be the majority of it, and they haven't done that. Ultimately, I would give Hawkeye a 5 out of 10. It just, you know what I mean? It didn't wow me at any point. Obviously, there's still things to it. Like, there were some good performances here. There were some cool special effects, and some bits I thought were okay. I thought they were decent, but overall, I found it boring, as I said, and it never really got going for me. What did you think of Hawkeye? Did you actually like it in the end? Did you think it was a good show? Because I'm seeing critic reviews actually been quite nice to it and enjoying it, but I don't know whether you can really take it seriously, because IGN gave this episode a 9 out of 10, but they gave Spider-Man No Way Home an 8 out of 10. So I don't know what's going on with the world. I don't know how you can make those two scores and say one's better than the other, but here we are. It is what it is. But yeah, I'm not a fan. Were you? Thank you all very much for watching. I've been Joe Squared, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.